Welcome to the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity's video podcast, featuring Father James Flanagan, S.O.L.T. founder. This teaching is about the communion of nations.
My soul proclaims the greatness of the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked with favor on his lowly servant. From this day all generations will call me blessed. The Almighty has done great things for me, and holy is his name. He has mercy on those who fear him in every generation. He has shown the strength of his arm. He has scattered the proud in their conceit. He has cast down the mighty from their thrones, and lifted up the lowly, filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. He has come to the help of his servant Israel, for he has remembered his promise of mercy, the promise he made to our fathers, to Abraham and his children forever. Glory to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and shall be forever. Amen.
I believe that it's very necessary for you to, in the life of community, to work for the relationship between various expressions of society everywhere, so that you don't narrow yourself to simply one point of view. It's not really becoming to you. It doesn't lend itself to peace and to dialogue in relationships. So I feel that there is one organization that has an international dimension of all the nations, the United Nations. And you should know the United Nations. It reaches to the various realities of society in so many wondrous ways. I will share with you some of them this afternoon. First of all, a respect for human rights is what the United Nations is to help to guarantee. And following from these human rights is the measures of the common good. And unfortunately, in society, people narrow themselves to their good, but not to the common good. They don't reach to what's good for everyone. They just, well, what's good for me? And they serve to evaluate these relationships between justice and injustice. What is justice in its essence? Justice is loving everyone the way they should be loved. That's justice. And it's tremendously lost in the sense of that society and various organizations works towards injustice rather than to loving everyone just because that's God's way. And it's just that we love each and every person. That comes from a religious teaching in our faith. I want you to love everyone the way I love them, Jesus says. And so in all the organizations that man becomes present in, this should be the spirit of the organization. It should be a spirit not of exclusiveness, but of inclusiveness, in the sense that we dialogue with people to bring them to love each other. And that's the aim of all the organizations, or should be the aim of all the organizations and society. Now, what does this bring about? Well, it brings about development. If you have this justice where you love everyone, it brings about this development of peoples. Paul VI wrote a beautiful teaching encyclical on the development of peoples. And it should be very, really present in your relationship with people. You want to work in the societies that you belong to develop people to the fullness of their gifts, their blessings, their graces. But you want to develop them in ways where they can serve others and they can reach out to others and not serve themselves, as so many corporations do. They just serve themselves. But that's not the spirit with which we come to an organization in society, nor is it the spirit of the United Nations. We promote human rights, and they should be most effective in eliminating inequalities, where there's this inequality between peoples. And we've seen that so many times in society. For example, we had that with slavery, the tremendous inequalities between certain races and between certain peoples. You find this, say for example, the peoples of different countries, especially of Europe, come together and they want to stay with each other. So they'll have ghettos. They'll have an Irish ghetto, an Italian ghetto, and a Polish ghetto, and they ghetto themselves. And that's not the spirit of society. The spirit of society is to open yourself to all. And it's very important, therefore, that the common good is for human rights. And everybody who's a human person has human rights. And we have the Declaration of Human Rights in the United Nations. And we want them to live up to that. Now, we want to not just merely apply correct procedures, not even by achieving a balance between competing rights. We want the rights to be present for all, and they're not competing against each other. Say, for example, the right to choose a religion shouldn't be competing with each other. We shouldn't have competition between the various religious denominations. And this becomes very important as you have interreligious denominations coming in from Asia and I remember when I first went to Asia and I became very close to Buddhists. And I had a friend, Pavana, who was a Buddhist monk who had a big monastery. And we became very close friends. And he would teach prayer. And I would teach prayer to him. And we had tremendous relationship with each other. And there wasn't sort of a distinction between us to try to achieve a balance between us, but rather it was to enable us to express different cultures and to appreciate the cultures of other people, and to see the models to cover the values of peoples. That we have to have a sense of being respectful to people's values. Because if you don't respect people's values, you don't respect them. And they lose their dignity as persons. So you want to recognize that values lead to rights. And it's very important that you respect the values. You see, with the Chinese people, they used to, before communism, have a deep respect and value older people. The elderly were shown tremendous respect by the Chinese culture, but they wiped that out in communism. And that value of older persons is not present. And as you can see in our culture, we want to do away with the older people. We don't see them as valuable. And so we want to have assisted suicide. We want to have ways where just let them die. You know, we don't have a value for the wisdom that God has given to older persons from life experience. And so we have to be very careful of that and have that respect for older persons. Now, you want to open yourself not just to apply procedures with each other. You know, you get so in the medical profession there, oh, this is our procedure. So, and so we do this no matter what. If you need it or not, we give you the procedure. Which isn't really respecting the dignity of the person. Now, today, however, we want to redouble to reinterpret the foundations of the Declaration of Human Rights. To compromise inner unity, no. We keep an inner unity. That inner unity facilitates a move away from a sense of the loss of the dignity of the human person. Because we are concerned about the exterior life and not concerned about the interior life, there is a very deep division in man, where he loses the tremendous realities of his inner life, and he doesn't see them as where God places the eternal values in his life. So this and we don't want to apply human rights piecemeal We can have this human right, but these rights, you don't have any rights. And this is what we have seen in the Nazis did this, the communists have done it, all the countries. And you notice that, at least when I was in the military, what we wanted to do was to restore human rights to everybody from the American military. And so I told priests who were chaplains in the military, and they said, well, you want us to be an army of peace, Father? And I said, yes. And they said, well, we're preparing for war. I said, no, you should prepare for peace. And they said, well, how are we going to bring peace? And so I said, well, I was very close to the head of the Marines at Subic Bay. I said, you see those mountains and hills up there? Well, there are thousands and thousands of people who live up there, especially children that are in the 4th degree of malnutrition. And they're going to starve to death because they have no food. And I said, go up there and feed those children. That's how you become an army of peace. You go up there and feed all those children and bring your doctors and your nurses and take care of their sickness and all of their needs medically. And so that's what they did. And these tough Marines, they went up there and took care of those people. And there was a tremendous transformation in that society. Tremendous transformation. And we want to see this in the societies. We want to see this sense of the dignity of the human person, the respect for the person, and common good. These are things that are being set aside. And we can't do that. In society, we have to have a society that has all of these present and active. For example, we don't want to satisfy our own interests. I think politically we see the terrible consequences of special interest people. They're not concerned about America. They're concerned about their own interests. And they destroy everything just to get their own interests satisfied. We don't believe that way. At least our country isn't founded on that. And it's founded on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But they want to take all of those away and just take care of us. Don't take care of everybody, just take care of us in special interest. And you want to be careful that you don't apply the standard of things piecemeal. It's not a puzzle that you're putting together. And therefore, you want to work towards not selective choices that satisfy our goals and wishes, but merely because we are contradicting the unity of the human person. And I told you that about the representative to the Holy See, Jim Nicholson was his name at the time, and how he told me personally that he was asking the president, what's the basic plan that you have. And the president told him, the dignity of the human person. And so does the Holy See. And so does the United Nations supposed to have that. Because if they don't have it, what they're doing is bickering with each other and fighting with each other and trying to get ahead of each other. And they're not helping each other. So, we want to see the unity of the human person. And therefore, his human rights. And you can't just treat him as a legal entity. I remember we had a case where we had to hire a lawyer, and it's still going on after years and years. And what the lawyers told me is, Father, if you want justice, don't go into the courts. You'll get no justice. Don't go into the courts. They cannot give justice. Settle it outside of court. That's how the reality of the conditions that we're in at the present time. You can't get an honest decision from the court system, the judicial system in the country. It's very, very difficult. We did win the case. We had to go to court because the people on the other side of the case wanted to go to court. And they were defeated, and they still didn't accept it. They're still trying to get their own way. And that's years. Now, you want to see that legality doesn't prevail over justice. As I told you, justice is loving each particular person. Each particular person. Therefore, you want to be very careful of legislative enactments or normative decisions that are taken by various agencies in power and in terms of legality. When that happens, human rights becomes very weak. And when it becomes weak, it's divorced from a rational dimension as the foundation and the goal of the human rights. And you lose those rights. But everybody has a right to them. Get the Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations and read it. And you'll see how it defends the humanity of mankind. Now, we want a conviction, therefore, of respect for human rights. And principally rooted in unchanging justice by our loving each other. And with the binding force of proclamations, this overlooks the attempt is made to deprive us of those rights, and in the name of a narrowly utilitarian perspective. In other words, it works better, it's easier, and you don't have to put up with people. No, you can't do that. And these rights are valid all the time for all peoples, these human rights. They're not something you pull in when you don't have any other answer. Now, do not do to others what you would not have them do to you. And we cannot in any way vary from a different understanding that has arisen in the world. I told you the story about the soldier on Christmas who was in the front lines, in the trenches, and there was a no-man land between the Germans and the Americans, and he crawled out on his stomach, and he had something in his hands, and the Germans didn't shoot him because they wondered what was in his hand. And so when he got out in the middle of no man's land, he stood up and he had a Christmas tree. And he put the Christmas tree in the ground. The Americans came out of the trenches, the Germans came out of the trenches, and they celebrated Christmas together. And that's a tremendous example of what we can do in the relationship with each other. And history proceeds with new situations all the time. So we have to attempt to link human rights with the new situations that are arising all the time. I find that when we're talking, say, about munitions and the development of the munitions today, and in the outfits that I knew very well, they worked to take the obstacles out of the sea so that the small boats could take the men in for their invasions, and so we had all kinds of work in the sea and going behind the lines. And but when I was talking with men who are in that outfit now, and it's all special forces now, that they said it's completely changed, Father. Now they are using light, and they have guns that they can shoot light at you and destroy you completely. Destroy you completely. And destroy the whole systems, your inner systems, with this light. You don't have a chance. And there's no recovery. Or, of course, nuclear weapons. It doesn't matter whether you're good, bad, or indifferent. You're destroyed. And I think I told you the story about the family in Japan where they dropped the atom bombs, and the explosions killed everything. But there was one family that wasn't touched. And they came to Philadelphia at the Eucharistic Congress in Philadelphia and told a story. And they were examined medically and everything as to what was the difference between this family and all the other people who were destroyed in the nuclear explosion in Japan. And you know what they found was they prayed the daily rosary together as a family. And not one of them had even radioactivity or anything. Now, I'm saying this to you because I feel you have to open yourself to discern the capacity of distinguishing good from evil. And this becomes even more essential in the demands of concern for people's lives and the conduct of persons and peoples. We read of terrible consequences where people destroy lives that there's no necessity for destroying them. And they become, well, in abortion, they become killers. That's what they're doing. They're killing. And after a while, it doesn't affect you. And they tear these children apart. And some of them have been converted, and after 60,000 people that they killed and tore apart. But we want to see the tremendous reality of every one of those persons had human rights. They were a human person. And they had human rights. And discernment, therefore, shows that entrusting yourself to the laws and institutions is not the final responsibility, but to meet the needs of people. You have a right to meet the needs of other people. And to meet their aspirations as persons. And we see that sometimes entire peoples are set apart. And they take away their human rights. When I was working in the prisons, I found that they took away every single human right that persons had. They took away every right that they had. And so what happens? They come out of prison worse than they went in, because their human rights are all gone. And it doesn't matter to them. And so we want to be respectful of the dignity and the rights of the persons.